What's up, YouTube? Greetings to the world. It's show time. Welcome to Wolf King's Vids. I'm your host, the illustrious Wolf King. All right, so tonight I'm going to talk about something a little special here. We're gonna talk about my take on the Black Hebrew Israelite cults. Now, the Black Hebrew Israelites are a cult group that believe that Black Americans are, in fact, the descendants of the biblical Israelites. Um, they they are known to be quite abrasive on the streets, talking to the individuals. And just to give you an example of what we're talking about, here's an example of them on, I believe, Jerry Springer expressing their views. Let's bring that up here. Okay, got it. We're going to give our analysis in a second.
Who have a very strong and, in some respect, militant view that the blacks are the real Jews, that they are the chosen people of God, they are superior to whites, according to the Bible is what they say.
We're the mouth of God. We're the prophets of God. The words that we say are not our own words, they are God's words. Now, the only reason the statement was made that there is no good white man on the face of this earth, because the Lord created you to be the wicked on the face of this earth.
Now, let me
According to Job 9:4, the Lord said the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. When you look at who's ruling this earth, you so-called white people are ruling the earth, so it's not hard to figure out who's the wicked. The ozone layer is polluted, you enslave people, the animals are endangered, the water's polluted, because you're the wicked that this Bible is speaking of.
Okay. All right. So that's an example of what we're talking about. Okay. So historically speaking, Black Christians have historically had something of a spiritual connection. They connect with the story of the children of Israel in the Bible, basically. It was only when two particular individuals in history came up. One of them was William Saunders Crowdy, and the other one was Frank Cherry. That sort of produced the foundation that now is the Black Hebrew Israelite movement in America. William Saunders Crowdy was sort of a more mild preacher when it comes to this view of Black Israelites. He sort of was able to start his church, have some Black members a part of it as well as white members, and it was sort of he was sort of managed to integrate it. It was sort of like a Black version of the Mormon group in a sense. It was less militant than Frank Cherry's version, who started after slavery and after the abolitionist movement. His more espoused anti-Semitism, hatred against whites, Black nationalism, and Black supremacy, and that's sort of how that view sort of diversified, and we see multiple groups in different metropolitan cities today, sort of espousing this view of African Americans are the true Black Hebrew Israelites, as well as these other different ethnic groups, Native Americans, Puerto Ricans, Hispanics, and all stuff. They're part of the 12 tribes of Israel, and how the white people are devils, and uh, and basically how we sort of need to repent, accept our biblical heritage, and get right with God before the great apocalypse where white people are slaves or some shit. Now, now understand that history. The reason African Americans connect with the children of Israel narrative is because of the racial discrimination, the slavery, and the 400 years of oppression that our group is sort of underwent, and sort of because of this as well as other factors that sort of led up to this group becoming a bit of an issue. And before I show you this next clip, we'll get into exactly why this hatred sort of like reached a boiling point in recent years, specifically with the Covington incident, which we're going to look at right now. Let's okay.
But a different video surfaced Sunday that showed what happened before the encounter.
You little dirty crackers, your day coming. Your day coming.
When a radical group of protesters called Black Hebrew Israelites taunted the boys for more than an hour with racist and homophobic abuse.
A bunch of child molesters.
You could hear the Black Hebrew Israelites shouting things.
Racist things at the white people. And
They
the
were
white
shouting
people,
racist things.
and the white people shouting racist things back at the black people.
Phillips couldn't be specific about what the boys shouted, and so far, no video evidence has emerged supporting his claims.
When I took that drum, let's hit the drum. You know, it was a call to prayer. I put myself in prayer.
And it was Phillips who approached the boys, not as it first appeared, the other way around. He walked among the group as they appeared to chant to his drum beats. Phillips said he believed he had to do something to protect the Black Israelites group from the boys, some of whom wore Make America Great Again hats.
These students, they're starting to get this mob mentality.
And what did you see that made you think that it was a mob mentality?
Well, 100 of them.
They were curious of those men, so I got in between those men and the boys and pushed the boys back. Eventually, I could get 8 to 10 of the boys that knew me, and I said, "We need to get out of here."
Now, school officials had issued an immediate apology and said they'll take appropriate action up to and including expulsion.
Okay. So that's that's sort of like the mindset that we're dealing with. I aforementioned their theology. They take modern ethnic groups of what we understand to be like social races for the most part. African Americans, Puerto Ricans, Hispanics, and they apply them to these ancient, these ancient descriptions of tribes, these 12 tribes of Israel, and they take that and they try to ascribe it on the modern things. Now the problem is these these translations, these names of these ancient tribes, they're for ancient peoples, ancient Canaanite groups that aren't applied to like what we understand now to be like this social concept of race. So that's like the first mistake, and it is just incorrect theology. That's what makes it heretical. And the second is they're just completely incorrect on science. They're saying that African Americans are the literal descendants of the biblical Israelites, and the DNA evidence does not suggest that at all. In fact, it suggests that African Americans, for the large part, are the descendants of sub-Saharan Africans, specifically West Africans. If you understand like the science of the genetics with the haplogroups, we're haplogroup E. African Americans are haplogroup E, specifically E1B1A, as a result of sharing that common ancestry with West Africans. Now, that doesn't mean that there are some Black Jewish groups. They don't like using the word Jewish because they think it has no etymology to it, but they really just can't demonstrate their inner Israelite nature. There are some Black Jewish groups. There's the Ethiopian Jews, Beta Israel. There's the Igbo Jews, who are they're more Jewish by virtue of practicing the religion rather than by being like a direct descendant of that culture. And there are also some African Americans who actually have Jewish parents that could be considered them to be Jewish on that level. People like Sammy Davis Jr., people like people like Drake, people like Eric Andre, and so on. But the idea that we're some like ancient descendants of this ancient mystical group with this destiny, I mean, it's just nonsense, and it's really an excuse to be overtly racist to white people, and also this declaration of we're going to enslave white people. I mean, it's insane. One would think that if you are against systemic racism, just racism in general, you wouldn't um, you wouldn't use your freedom of speech to try to express hate on that level, because at that point you're really no better than the Klan or the alt right when you say things like that. I mean, it's basically it's no different than saying that white people are the best. Any kind of racial supremacy, any doctrine stating that, I mean, you're essentially racist, and you're no better than the opponents that you're trying to fight against. I mean, that's the reality of the situation. That's why I can't understand this insane um uh, uh these insane ideas right now, because originally, yeah, these guys, Frank Cherry and William Saunders, Crowdy, they had these revelations that said that God came to them and said that African Americans were the true descendants of Israel. Now, I can get that in some sense given the psychological nature of their plight. But now that African Americans have achieved so much with the civil rights movement and other gains like that, it's amazing that these groups are still consistently um, just running along and spreading this pseudo history as a way to make themselves feel more, I don't know, empowered. I mean, it's insane. Honestly, as far as their impact on the Black community, it seems to be like honestly more or less negative, because I mean, this whole talk about like having pride in one's culture, I get that, I understand that, that's important, but spreading this bigotry and this vitriol, it really makes no sense, and it advances nothing. All right, you're not supposed to judge someone by the color of their skin, but by the actions of the heart and the ideas in their head. That's how you judge a person. That's what matters, not by this cult mentality. I mean, a good example of their of the nature of this cult is Dr. York. In fact, let's see if there's a video on him. Do we got some on him? Hang on 1 second. And I don't got nothing on Dwight York. I'll just say it. He was originally a cult leader, a member of the Black Hebrew Israelite movement. He was big in New York. The nature regarding who exactly the nature of his birth parents were are mystery, because he sort of he sort of made up multiple different accounts of his story in life. He sort of moved around a bit. He got involved with these with a lot of these spiritual movements, and got a lot of people to follow him over time. He sort of changed and shifted the theme of the cultural identity of his group. It went from Black Hebrew Israelite to Aboriginal to to I think they went with this cowboy western thing briefly, and then they ultimately settled on Islam. It went around for a while until it was discovered he was actually using that code as a way not just to get money but also to diddle little kids, and he finally got busted when his own members became disillusioned with the actions of what he was doing, and he ultimately got apprehended and his movement died. But yeah, I think it's important for free thinkers, regardless of their ethnic persuasion, to come out and challenge these kind of movements, because honestly, it's people like that, and also others with these other ridiculous movements this idea that we're Moors, the Moorish temple, and the Black Aboriginals. That's just it's really causing a lot of confusion, a lot of insanity, and just a lot of ridiculousness to sort of contaminate the human mind and sort of get us focused on this kind of tribalism, as opposed to accepting our inner humanness, or focusing on our commonalities than the things that separate us. It's only when we deconstruct this pseudo history and focus on the actual facts of the matter, the real science, and the rationality of the matter, that we could actually get to some kind of truth. But we need to challenge and get rid of this shit. But that's my 2 cents on it. That's my analysis. This stuff is just, it's a complete cult. There's no rational basis for it, whether you look at it in a theological sense or a more scientific sense. And I just reject it outright. I reject all forms of ethnic nationalism, black, white, whatever culture you want to put on it. But that's my take on it. That's my commentary. This has been Wolf King. Peace out. If you like this video, you know what to do. Stop by there to know, and peace out later.